ॐ ज्ञानं तिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदन्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपां साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुस्तुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay. So we're doing chapter 3, Karma Yoga. So in this chapter, Krishna is now moving from Buddhi Yoga to Karma Yoga. And in this chapter, Krishna has three main sections that he wants to cover. He answers Arjuna's question to begin with. In the first 9 texts, is renunciation of work or work in devotion better? And of the two, which one is better, renunciation of work or work in devotion? He talks about karma kanda, karma yoga, varnashrama, and bhakti yoga. So many different, a lot of key core topics. Karma kanda to karma yoga to varnashram to bhakti yoga, and finally he tells Arjuna to be aware, to be careful of lust and anger. So these are the three main themes, and we see the verse numbers along with that. Actually, chapter 3 is a very nice chapter. It's very, it's the heart of Krishna consciousness. It's very simple and it's very practical. It's like it's everything that Prabhupada is teaching us. It's the basis, the core of our Krishna conscious teaching. So once again, back to our themes. There's 5 themes that are the big themes of the Bhagavad Gita. Remember, there's Atma, talks about Atma, the Jiva, the self. Prakriti or nature, karma, action, kala, time, and Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this chapter is talking about which topic? Karma or action. Right? So action in Krishna consciousness, karma yoga. This is such an important topic that Krishna talks about this throughout the Bhagavad Gita. Again, in chapter 5, we will also see. So um, this is uh, this is a topic that also is not just practically but also philosophically at the core of spiritual knowledge, of the Bhagavad Gita's teaching, and the whole Vedic knowledge's teachings. So we'll start with this question. This chapter also is very nice for sharing Krishna consciousness. And one of the first questions that people ask about, or that we tell people, um, because it's something that forms the basis of everything else, is what is reincarnation? When we tell people about chapter 2, the eternality of the soul, then naturally we must then discuss what is reincarnation. If the soul is eternal, then uh, uh, what happens to it? And that's the discussion on reincarnation. So reincarnation here, and this is the famous picture in Bhagavad Gita that's there in every single Bhagavad Gita, every single one of the 44 million books, million copies of the Gita that have been published, more than that now, far more than that. That was some time ago. But this is being described right here. You see, with all of the different um, bodies. So this is Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara. Kaumaram yovanam jara. From boyhood to youth to old age. Tatha dehantara prapti dhira satra namohyati. Krishna is describing the second chapter, that we are eternal, and therefore this body is simply changing. The body is simply like clothes that changes as time progresses. And this body is changing from one body to another at the time of death. Well, it's changing from one body to another at every point in life. And what we call death is just a sudden change of body. So I mentioned this last time, but maybe I'll highlight it again, that this text 2:13, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, this is actually a argument for the existence of the soul and the argument for reincarnation. Krishna is pointing out that every so many years, our body completely changes. Prabhupada says every 7 years, medical science tells us that our body changes. And this is actually a fact. I actually read it in a medical textbook. And they say that every 10 years, every single cell in our body has changed, including the brain cells. So the body changes every 7 years, and even the brain cells, they change completely in the course of 10 years. So every 10 years, we have a brand new body. If we are 70 years old, that means we've had 7 bodies. Every 10 years, the body changes. So 7 bodies we've had. So we are reincarnating even in this life. If we are changing bodies even in this life and we are still the same person, then Krishna says what we call death must just be a sudden change in body. Why is it that at the time of death, we will not change bodies? We're already dying and being born again in every 10 years. So death is just a sudden change in body. Just like we've been experiencing, it must go on in the future. That is the logical conclusion. Just like science means you study a sample, and from the sample, you can understand the general. So in the same way, the body changes, and by the changing body, we can understand that after death, the same thing will happen, what we are experiencing right now. And this is called reincarnation. Oh, one more thing on this painting. So this painting, Prabhupada, you know, this is such a classic painting. Since Prabhupada's time, this has been coming. And when you show someone this painting, or you show them a diorama of this painting, then it shocks them, even though we experience this on a daily basis. But someone new completely, or even not new, if they see this, it's like it shakes them for a minute. And one nice thing that you can do is you can show people this picture, and then you cover the very last part with your hand, and then you ask them, count how many bodies there are. So they'll count and they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 bodies. You say, okay, there's 13 bodies. And then you ask, how many people are there? And they'll say, one person. One person is there. So there's 13 bodies, but there's one person. This means that the body is different than the soul. What is karma? Now the question comes up, what is karma? Karma means action. And karma is described in many different ways. Uh, and all of you, it's like preaching to the choir. All of you know that karma refers to the cycle of karma, the law of action and reaction. However, at its very basis, in its most literal form, karma just means action. It doesn't mean the law of action, reaction. Karma just means action. Therefore, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam. When speaking about himself, he says, my appearance and activities are divine. Janma karma chame divyam. And similarly, he says to Arjun that uh, that this karma also binds us in this world, right? So both things are there, but he's describing how this action, um, this karma is um, uh, meant to uh, bind the soul in this world, but that same karma in the spiritual world simply means action, the the principle of activity. It doesn't mean necessarily binding. But another meaning in this context is the law of karma. So in the context of the law of karma, can someone define one way that we can explain the law of karma? Please unmute and share.
The action and reaction.
Yes. So very nice. Every action has a reaction. And what is something that we can put forward that people are used to uh, to to further clarify that? Yes, that's correct. To further clarify, what more can we say?
Everything comes back.
What goes around comes around, right? What goes around comes around. This is, I think, a biblical statement. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This is definitely a biblical statement. So another way to describe karma is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So again, this is taking something that is very well known to us, very obvious to us, but saying it in a way that others can relate with. Okay? Other thoughts? How else
It,
can we?
Prabhuji, it also means that positive deeds yield positive results and negative deeds yield negative results.
Yes, yes, very nice. So karma, we assume sometimes it just means if you do something bad, you get the bad reaction. Oh, I have bad karma. Oh, karma. But karma can refer to both or either. Also, good actions. If we do something good, we get the good result. Karma says if you do something bad, you can be sure that that reaction will come back to you. But it also says that if you do something good, even if no one notices, even if no apparent result comes, that goodness will come back to you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Could it be like activities, forbidden activities, and activities in Krishna consciousness?
Yes, Krishna says karma, vikarma, and akarma. Three types of karma. Again, this is a good point, that a good example of how karma fundamentally refers to action. Karma means fruit of activity. Vikarma means bad activity, sinful activity. And akarma means action in Krishna consciousness. No action, meaning action that leads to no reaction. Very good. Another way to explain karma is Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And this is a nice way to explain it to people. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction because people are very much in tune and they resonate very much with laws of physics. So you can explain that this is actually one of the laws of physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Newton said this. Vedas have been saying this since millions of years, but even if you don't believe the Vedas, you definitely believe Newton. And he said this is the law of motion. And this is why it works because see, this is why like if you hit the table, it hurts your knuckles. Why? Because the table hits you back. This is the action of law of action reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So what the Vedas are saying, just like there are universal physical laws, so many laws. Similarly, there's also a universal moral law, and that is the law of karma. And whatever we put out, that will come back to us. And that physical law is basically the same moral law. Any activity you perform, it comes back to us. We already know this. So what is it? It's not something we even need to take on faith, even through science. We are already aware of this. So why it should not be true? And this is the law of karma. We can be assured that this is true. It will come back. It will take its time. There's one statement that says that the wheels of karma grind slowly, but they grind very fine. So reaction may be slow. It may not even come in this lifetime. It may come in a future lifetime. But the law of reincarnation, the law of karma is very stringent. It is very fine. Every single thing that we have done, it will come back to us. And even as devotees, it doesn't come back as karma per se. It comes back as the mercy of Krishna. But Prabhupada in one place just was hearing, he says, we should be assured that that it's not that just because we are a devotee, it will not come. It will come in a way that we will, be still connected with Krishna if we're a devotee. But Krishna will still give us the experience, just so we don't do it again, Prabhupada says. So not because of the law of karma, but Krishna will respect the logic of karma, or you could say the spirit of the karma, the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, but he will still respect that so that we don't do it again. And this is why we should be so careful. We should be so careful in not doing the wrong thing. His Holiness Radha Govinda Maharaj, he says that we should be afraid of our karma. We should have fear that this will come back to me. Therefore, I shouldn't do the wrong thing. Because right now we may be in a situation where we're in a strong position. The stars have aligned in our favor. But just because we can, we should not feel that we should, because it will come back. There's so many ways to describe karma. There's karma quote number 46. Very nicely put. You are free to make any decision you wish, but you are not free from the consequences of that decision. So karma presupposes freedom, right? We say, well, what about, karma is just, no, karma means that we have free will. Karma does not mean that we're bound by a vicious cycle that we cannot get out. No, the very reason we get karmas is we have our freedom. We had a freedom of choice. And we may not be free to make any decision. This quote is not completely correct. But within the decisions that we can make, we're free to make any decision. So, for example, I'm not free to make the decision to fly in the sky like a bird because I don't have wings. But among the decisions that I can make, I am free to make any decision I wish. But we're not free from the consequences of those decisions. I'm free to wrong someone, but I'm not free from the consequence, from the result that will come from wronging that person. And we may cheat the whole world. We may even cheat ourselves in, in convincing ourselves that I have done no wrong. But we cannot cheat Krishna and Krishna's, immortal law of karma. A famous motivational speaker, Wayne Dyer, he has said, how people treat you is their karma. How you react is yours. If someone says, but I was put into this position. What can I do? So yes, that is their karma. And how we respond is ours. And that's why we can have freedom again. Karma actually makes a person more in control of their destiny. It's not something like predestination or predetermination, as people accuse karma of being that, well, see, now everything you're saying is determined. Everything is in our hands. Even if we are getting bad karma, we can change it by surrendering to Krishna. Krishna is saying this in the Gita as final instruction. Just surrender unto me. Sarva dharman parityaja. Mam ekam sharanam raja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. I will remove all your karma, all your papa. So it is how we react. We will all be faced with misfortune in this world. So people say, also we sometimes feel that, well, my situation is so unfortunate. What can I do? But everyone will be faced with misfortune. How we react, that is the difference between the divine and the demoniac. When the demoniac are faced with misfortune, then they fight and they respond in a very selfish, angry way. And when the divine are faced with misfortune, the demigods, then they take shelter of Krishna. That is the difference. It's the difference in the response, not in what they experience. As a devotee, also we may experience some misfortune, some challenge, some adverse situation. But when we take shelter of Krishna, then everything becomes pacified. So now, this is what karma means. This is how we define karma. We define reincarnation. We define karma. Now, what are two factors that determine our next life? So now we're in this body. At the time of death, we are going to change our body. We've agreed on that. Krishna has given us a logical argument in that verse, Dehinosmin yatha dehe. Now, our question is, how is our next life determined? Based on what?
Past karma and karma that we have accrued this lifetime, and what our thought process is at the time of death.
Okay. So one of them is karma, what we talked about. So we talked about the law of karma. That is something that determines our next life. And like you're saying, there's different types of karma, past karma, present karma. Both of those will determine our next life. Very good. Another one someone would like to share.
One of
Our
them is karma.
desires,
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Aarti.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, it's karma and kama. So our desires and our actions, like Prabhu was saying.
Very nice. Yes, our thoughts, as Prabhu had said first, then our desires, and like you both are saying desires, yes. So basically our kama and karma, very nice. Nice way to put it. It is what we deserve and what we desire. Both of those things. It's not just what we deserve, it's also what we desire that determines our next life. It is by our desires that we are circling in this material world from one body to another. And Krishna is so kind that he's trying to fulfill each one of our desires. However, it's also not our desire. Our desire is limited by what we also deserve. So it's the combination of the two. And a nice example is just like a person at the time of death, their final desire is that they want to fly. Right? This is why Krishna at the end he says Antakale chamameva smaran mukta kalevaram, right? Chapter 8. That whatever desire we have at the end of our life, that is what leads us to our next life. Why? Because the desire that we have at the end is our most intense desire. Throughout our life, whatever we cultivate, whatever desires we cultivate most intensely, they will manifest within our mind. And so people have, Make-A-Wish foundations because those are the desires people have at the end. They're the most serious ones and they want to fulfill them. So if throughout one's life, let's say one has been a skydiver and they have been flying in the sky, with these parachutes and all these things. And at the end of their life, they think this skydiving is so enjoyable, but it's such a pain. You have to wear this whole gear and get this parachute. And if you don't pack it properly, you can die. I went to this skydiving facility once for a tour. As children, you would visit places and they take you on tour. So this was a place where they would make these parachutes for skydivers. And the man who was giving us a tour, he was explaining to us that this is the thing that the skydiver has to, each time, you open it up, then you have to pack it again, right? So they have to pack it like this. And he said, this is like 20 some years ago when, I went for 30 years ago, maybe when I went for this tour. And he said that if you don't pack it the right way, if you put this fold in first rather than this one, then the thing won't open up and you'll fall like a rock. You're dead. And if you pack it right, then it opens up. After that tour was meant to, inspire young people to skydive. But after that, I decided never to skydive in my life. Never tried it since that time. It's just one little thing. If you make the fold wrong, you'll be dead. So someone may think, oh, this is so much headache. So in my next life, I should just fly. So in their mind, their desire is to come back as some being that can fly. And therefore, they intend that I will come back like an angel that flies in the sky, and I'm going to flap my wings, and I'll be this angelic being flying. However, they have not been such a good person, right? In their life, they have robbed a few banks, punched a few people. So while that is their desire, what they deserve is something not so good. And so what they deserve it limits what they desire. So they come back in their next life and they will fly because that is their desire. But rather than coming back as an angel, they come back as a pigeon. They come back as a pigeon and they're flying but not in style, right? Not so much in style. They're just flying like a pigeon flies. So what we deserve is limiting what we desire. It's the desire, the kama, that actually carries one to the next body. Because the physical body is simply a manifestation of the subtle body. And the subtle body forms through our desires. That's the mind, the intelligence, the ego. Right now, we're actually forming our next body. The desires that we cultivate now are forming what our next life will be. And this is why Prabhupada says that be Krishna conscious. Because right now, if we cultivate spiritual thoughts, that subtle body, if we cultivate spiritual activities, that subtle body will be formed accordingly. At the end of our life, our desires will be driven in that direction. And then the physical body will follow the subtle body. If our desires are to go back to Krishna, then the subtle body will disintegrate and the soul will go back to Krishna. If our desires are to, eat fish, then we will become a fish, because those are the desires, the thoughts that we are cultivating. So our Sanskrit texts, they tell us that there's 8,400,000 species of life. However, the human form of life is the only species in which one can gain good or bad karma. There's so many species, so many forms of life. We look outside, just in the garden, There's trillions of living entities there in the form of grass and bugs. And all of them have souls. They're all in the process of reincarnation. But what is special about human life? Why it's said that this human life is so special, we should not waste it. Because in this human life, we have an opportunity that we do not have in any other life. And what is that opportunity? That opportunity is that we can break out of the cycle because, or we can change the trajectory of our life. Because in this life, in the human life, it's the only species in which we can gain good or bad karma. Another very important part of the understanding of the process of karma. So it's the only life that we can gain good or bad karma. What does this mean? One thing that this means is that we should take our actions very seriously. Sometimes Christians, they will criticize us that, look, in your philosophy, actions really don't have big consequences because you do something bad in your next life, you suffer the reaction, and then you just, start from where you left off. You make it up. But in our philosophy, if you mess up this life, it's serious consequences, eternal hell. Of course, that also doesn't sound attractive to me at all. But the point is a valid point that, if you mess up this life, it's like, okay, and many Hindus unfortunately think this way. Okay, next life, I'll do it. So there's not much inspiration to be serious in this life. Like, this life, I'm really rich and happy, so why mess it up? Enjoy, and then next life, when I'm suffering, then I'll surrender to God. But no, Prabhupada says this. I was just listening to a tape. It's so amazing. He was saying that if you miss this chance, then it may be a million lifetimes before you come back to the human form of life. Because in these other lives, let's say you become, due to our bad karma, I become a insect. Then I have to go to the insect species and then work my way back up. So the karma is to become an insect, but then you have to work your way back up to the human form of life through the gradual process of evolution. Actually, the Vedas are the first place where evolution comes, but that's the evolution of the soul through these different bodies. If our reaction is to become a cow, it's not so bad, because then the next life is a human life. But we don't know if we become a tree, then it may be so many lifetimes before we become a human being again. So one point that is brought across is that our choice in this life is so serious. We say, oh, I made the wrong choice and I lost a year of my life because I did the wrong master's degree or whatnot. But we have to remind ourselves that's a very small wrong choice. Nothing much is lost. If we make the wrong choice and not surrender to Krishna, many thousands of lifetimes may be lost. What to speak of 1 year, millions of years will be lost. So Prabhupada is saying it may be a million lifetimes, so that we should not waste this opportunity. But what else? How does this work? Does it mean that as an animal we never gain good or bad karma? Then how is it that as an animal we suffer? Anyone would like to clarify this? Like to offer a solution?
Sorry, Prabhu, can you repeat the question again?
The question is, so here it's being said that only in a human life we gain good or bad karma. So in animal life, we don't gain good or bad karma. But then why do the animals suffer? And how do we understand this statement? In other words, does karma just apply to human life or also animal life? And then how is animal life then related with human life? Because karma spans not just our this life, but also all the species of life.
Are you just living out the reactions that you have, or the karma that you have accrued through those previous lives?
Yes, exactly, Phil. You've hit the nail on it. It is simply you're burning off your karma. Just like Prabhupada gives the example that when you go on vacation to Hawaii, let's say, nice time to go in this winter time, then you are simply burning off the money that you have. There in vacation, you don't gain more money, but you're simply burning off the money that you already have. So in an animal form of life, the animals also suffer, they also enjoy. But that's not because of what they have done in their lifetime. Animals do not gain new good or bad karma because they don't have freedom. You see, and that's why again, freedom is the core of karma. Free will, freedom. They don't really have free will. They act simply upon instinct. Right? The tiger has no choice. It must go and kill an animal or a human to eat. There's no fault on its part because it has no free will. It must act according to its instinct. So it doesn't gain good or bad karma. That soul is simply burning off its karma that it already has in that life. And similarly, it is also true of the demigods. That demigods also, higher species, also don't gain good or bad karma. This is why so many people they ask, what about Indra? Right? Why, why doesn't he, suffer like we humans do when he does something wrong? Because he does actually, there is actually some reaction there in terms of uh, in terms of uh, spiritual effects. He has to do austerities, he gets bad, results. But in terms of actual karma, the demigod life is actually our reward. It is for enjoyment. Like again, the Hawaii example. And imagine a place where you go and you're on vacation, there's also no laws. It's like they can do whatever they like. They're burning away their good karma. They accumulated a lot of it, and now they're flying in space and doing what they want and burning it off. But they can be assured that if they don't make it out, they'll be back to the human form of life. So, in either direction, no new karma is formed. And in human life, it's the only life of responsibility, where we have just the right balance of suffering and enjoyment, where we actually have free will, that we can make real, meaningful choices. This is why Prabhupada gives the examples in terms of animals. He says that a human being crosses the street and he gets a ticket on a red light if he crosses the street. But if a dog crosses the street on a red light, he gets no ticket because we don't hold the dog responsible. Just like we don't, Krishna also doesn't. In the same way, as a demigod, we may not get bad karma. We are simply burning off our karma. But as a human being, we will. Why? Because in the demigod life, there's so much enjoyment. There's so much pleasure that we almost lose our free will. Um, uh, for spiritual life, we need the good balance of suffering and happiness. And human life, this is why it's so special, because it gives us that balance. If we have too much material enjoyment, it's very hard not enjoy it. Almost impossible. And that's why we see in our temples across the world, most of the people who actually join Krishna consciousness and take up to Krishna consciousness, they're middle class people in terms of their economic status. It says, oh, well, ISKCON, is targeting this. No, it's not about that. It's actually about them. If people are too wealthy, Jesus Christ said it is harder to take a rich man to the kingdom of God than to string an elephant through the eye of a needle. Jesus said this. It's harder for a rich man to go to heaven than to string an elephant through the eye of a needle. Why? I mean, are we bad people if we're rich? No, but there's so much enjoyment that it's hard to focus on spiritual life. In the same way, if people are too poor, if they're simply struggling to get food and their stomach is burning because of hunger, or they're so fearful because of war, they're simply thinking of survival. It's very hard to inspire them to think about spiritual topics. So even in, anywhere, even in America, not just in places. But if the place may be prosperous, but if the person is very poor, it's very hard for them. In India, that's why there's so many poor people. And you wonder, why don't they just join the temple? They're giving free food and all these things because they don't have the time to even consider it. But those who are in the middle, they have the inspiration and the time, and they generally join Krishna consciousness more easily. At the same time, everyone joins Krishna consciousness. It's more easier for them, and in far greater numbers they join because we need that balance, and human life in general provides that balance. It's the life that is there to break out. And that's why the Bhagavatam again and again says that this human life is this strong boat by which you can cross the ocean of nescience. Don't manusham janma yar, that do not waste this human life. Whatever you do, don't waste it. As children, this is Prahlad Maharaj's basic teaching. As children, we waste our life. As youth, we waste our life. In what? In education. We think education is so, this is the best thing that our kids could do. But in education, we waste our life. Material education. And we've done it so many times. And we think it's the all in all. But if we don't engage it in Krishna's service, if we don't also simultaneously develop spiritual knowledge, then that education is a waste of time. Similarly, in youth, we waste our time in pursuing relationships. So much time is wasted in finding the right person. Years and months and, on Facebook, on phone calls and this and that. And we're thinking this is progress. I must find someone. But that time is wasted again. Then as householders, he's saying we waste our time in maintaining what we have gained. We gained a relationship, we gained a family, we gained a house, then we have to maintain it. Again, time wasted. Then when we get older, then we are spending all of our time in protecting what we have gained so we don't lose it. That is our health, our wealth, our family. You see, it's this constant struggle for existence that let me try to protect what I have gained, my kids. So that time is wasted. And then in the fag end of our life, the time is wasted in simply trying to stay alive, our health, and in lamenting in everything that we didn't do in life. So do not waste this time, Prahlad Maharaj says, but rather kaumaram acharat pragya dharman bhagavatamiha. From the very beginning of life, pursue Krishna consciousness, pursue spiritual life. That is Krishna. That is the actual way out, because this is so rare. So now we have this unlimited cycle of reincarnation, birth after birth, millions of lifetimes, right? Nearly unlimited, millions of lifetimes we've taken. And someone may ask, well, what is the point of this process of reincarnation? This is very commonly a challenge. Like, you keep circling in this cycle. What's, I mean, why reincarnation? Why does God made this vicious cycle? The point of reincarnation is to stop reincarnating. Karma and reincarnation are there to simply stop the cycle and end the cycle. The purpose of reincarnation is to not reincarnate. The purpose is that eventually, life after life, trying to pursue our senses, trying to find enjoyment, one day we will feel frustrated and we will say, Krishna, now I'm confused. Please instruct me. I am a soul surrendered unto you. Like Arjuna says to Krishna, I am a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me, Krishna. Shishyasteham shadi mam tvam prapannam. He says, I am your disciple. Please give me the light. Show me the way. That is the only purpose of this world. The purpose of all these things we think of as for this or that. The purpose of all these things is simply to frustrate us. The purpose of our material success is to frustrate us. The purpose of our lack of success is to frustrate us. The purpose of our material comforts is to frustrate us, so that one day we realize this is not me. I must surrender and find the ultimate goal of life. So if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling like a failure, if you're feeling um, that, I'm just, like we all do, I definitely feel like this. I'm just like, so unfortunate. Then feel that you're very fortunate, because that is the whole point. If you're feeling frustrated, that's very good. But it's good if we then act on that frustration. We find the solution, which is surrendering to Krishna. Then it becomes complete. And that's the perfection of life. So how does one stop the cycle? So now the point of reincarnation karma is to stop reincarnating. So now the question comes, how do we stop this reincarnation? What is the way? The problem here, and the reason why this question is asked, how do we stop this cycle, is because any action that we do brings a reaction. So if we do bad activities, we will obviously come back. But even if we do good activities, we will still come back to this world, because then we have to come back to enjoy the result, just like the demigods. So whatever we do will bring a reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the natural question comes, is there some way to stop this cycle? And so how do we stop the cycle?
Akarma.
Akarma. So the natural conclusion is that if we are acting and it brings a reaction, any karma brings a result, then the solution should be no action. But Krishna tells us in the Gita that it's not possible not to act even for a moment. So that is the solution, akarma. But Krishna is saying that that's not possible. We cannot not act. So who would like to, someone else, what type of an action stops the cycle?
Of surrender.
Surrender. Okay. The act of surrender.
When all
Action
of
in
our
Krishna consciousness.
when all of our actions are performed for Krishna with him in mind, always at the center.
Okay, when our actions are performed for Krishna with
With,
him in mind.
without
Yes.
attaching to results.
Action without attachment to the results. Yes, this is the theme of chapter 3. Action without attachment to the fruits of the action. Very nice. Which is what Mataji said, devotional action. Right? Action with Krishna in the center. That's the only way that we will not be attached to the results. So therefore, Krishna again and again is telling Arjuna, perform your activity, but don't be attached to the results. That means that you are doing it for me. Perform it for me. Okay. Other thoughts?
Knowledge of Krishna, like
The
Krishna saying,
knowledge.
Janma Karma Cha Me Devim.
Yes. So knowledge of Krishna stops the cycle of birth and death by developing spiritual knowledge. That stops the cycle. Very good. But that is also an action. That's also an action. Studying something, reading something is an activity. So that comes in the category of devotional action.
Nishkama
Compassion.
Karma Yoga.
Nishkam Karma Yoga, which is what the Sanskrit of what we just said, acting but without attachment to the result. Yes.
Compassion.
Compassion. Very nice. So acting out of compassion. Yes.
It's ultimately Bhakti Yoga.
Ultimately Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, which is devotional action. Yes. So Prabhupada says that when we perform the activity, but not for ourselves, then we don't get the reaction. But the person for whom we're doing it, if we do it for Krishna, then the person we're doing it, that is Krishna, he will take the reaction. Prabhupada gives the example of a soldier. A soldier goes to the battlefield and he kills so many people. He fights very valiantly and he kills so many people. And when that soldier comes back, then he's given the Purple Heart, right? The highest medal of honor for fighting so valiantly and killing so many of the enemies. So many lives are lost, yet he's given the Purple Heart. Now that same soldier takes the same weapon and he goes to the city street and he kills just one person. He doesn't kill 50, 100, no, he just kills one person. And then As a result of that, that soldier is taken to jail and he lives his life, the rest of his life in jail. So Prabhupada asked the question, what is the difference? In one case, he killed so many people and he was honored. In every nation, society, it's like that. And in the other case, he kills one person, does the same activity, but for that he has to be punished. The difference is that in the first case, he was not acting on his own desires, but he was acting on the authority of the commander. He was acting not for his own sense gratification, but in theory, at least, for the gratification of the heads of state. In the other case, he was acting for his own gratification. It was his own decision, his own desire. And as a result of that, he has to be responsible for the good or bad result. Maybe he kills a very bad person, a criminal, but whatever it is, he will be responsible, good or bad, for that activity. In the case of the battle, it may be good or may be bad. But in either case, if let's say, especially if he's drafted in the war, he's not responsible. The commander is responsible. They will get the reaction. And they do get the reaction. And that's why it's being a king or a leader or a president is such a heavy responsibility. Because if a battle happens and so many people die, then the king gets the reaction for it. They have to suffer for every one of those deaths if it's an unjustified war. And Maharaj Yudhishthira, after the battle, this is why he's feeling so heavy at heart. Because he knows this. He knows the cycle of karma. And he's thinking, if by chance there's any selfish motivation in this battle, then how much I will have to suffer. Life after life after life. So we stop the cycle by Krishna consciousness. If we act for Krishna, if we do devotional action, then that reaction doesn't affect us. So there's three paths that are given. And this is the second part of this chapter, as I mentioned to you. And this is why Krishna mentions all of these things. So the way out starts generally for most people with good works. Even though good karma doesn't break us out of the cycle, it still leads us in the right direction. And that is called karma kanda, purification of our activities. If we uplift ourselves and elevate ourselves, then at least then we can start to think about performing activity for Krishna. So therefore the Vedas prescribe karma kanda. You think, well, why do they do that if that entangles us more? Because it's also uplifting us. It's leading us. Though entangling us, it's still taking us to karma yoga. Karma kanda will hopefully turn into karma yoga. Karma kanda is where we perform the fruitive activities mentioned in the Vedas in a way that is prescribed and authorized by the Vedas, but for ourself. And karma yoga is when we start to do those things for Krishna. So it's not sinful activity, nor is it completely selfless activity. It's activity that I want to do, but I'm purifying it. Just like I may want to, I don't know, go sightseeing. But then while going there, I put Prabhupada's class in the car. So that's very nice. And that is devotional service. But it's mixed because I'm doing what I want to do, but I'm also trying to purify it by hearing also along with it. But it uplifts me. It takes me towards Krishna. And that is called Sakam Karma Yoga. We get more in detail to this in the future chapters. That is Karma Yoga mixed with my own desire. Then by performing activities like this, it leads to detachment. And this is the knowledge of Sankhya Jnana Yoga, which is giving up our desire, giving up material desires, reducing our material desires. Okay, I need to keep body and soul together, but I don't need so much. I don't need to do, all of this to keep my body and soul together. There's different definitions of keeping body and soul together, right? And we justify many things by keeping our body and soul together. It's a advanced devotee of the Lord. They may feel that keeping body and soul together means, you know, eating a few morsels of food every day and having a little hut to live in, and that's keeping body and soul together. And our conception of keeping body and soul together is, I need at least $60,000 a year and this and that and insurance and all these things. That's keeping body and soul together. So according to the level of our detachment, we will feel what it means to have body and soul together. The Goswamis of Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they were drinking only a few drops of buttermilk every day. And for them, that was keeping body and soul together. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that spiritual life begins and means honesty with ourselves. That is it really my need, or is it really my desire? And as we make advancement in Krishna consciousness, we get detachment through karma yoga by trying to engage our desires in Krishna's service and recognizing that, no, this is my desire, that I'm engaging in Krishna's service. By doing that service, it leads to detachment, which leads to me giving up my own desires, which finally leads me to bhakti yoga, or devotional action. Action simply for Krishna's pleasure. Action for Krishna. And that's why as devotees, practicing, aspiring devotees, we often think that bhakti is very easy. Bhakti yoga is easy. Prabhupada says, chant, dance, and be happy. But actually, bhakti yoga is not easy. Ramanujacharya, in his tradition, in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, they say that actually bhakti is very, very difficult. No one can literally do it. And that's why he focused on prapatti, or surrender. He says, forget about bhakti. We can't do it, just surrender. And surrender your life to Krishna and Guru, and that will be success. And that's why Prabhupada also had a similar mood. He trained his devotees to do the regulated process of bhakti. But another aspect of that was just surrender. They would just, do whatever Prabhupada asked them to do. Because bhakti is so exalted. Why? Because if there's even 1% of personal desire, then it's not bhakti. We're doing karma yoga, sakam karma yoga. But we are not doing bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is when 10% we're acting only for the pleasure of Krishna. We may think we're doing that, but if we, again, honestly, carefully analyze our actions, we may realize just within our own heart that I have some motivation here. And if Krishna asked me just to wash pots for the rest of my life, would I be happy to do that? Would I say yes? Would I say, wow, this is like the most wonderful thing? And if we, in our heart, if we say no, then we know, okay, I'm not on the level of bhakti yoga, because I'm not doing fully selfless activity. There's some selfish motivation there. I want to do bhakti as long as it gives me something in return for myself. So this first stage of karma kanda to karma yoga, this is Krishna in text 9. He's taking us from one stage to the next. He's saying, text 9, work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu, yag santo, has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So Krishna is establishing we must do karma yoga. Perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, that is the only way to remain free from bondage. Now in the next verse, what does he say? In the beginning of creation, The Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, Be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So now it kind of is coming in reverse order, but now Krishna is clarifying that this process of yajna, that is karma kanda, this process of all these different yajnas, it was meant for what purpose? It was meant to bestow happiness upon all. That through performing this yajna, they can attain Lord Vishnu and achieve happiness, achieve liberation. That it was not simply meant to satisfy our desires, but it was meant to satisfy Lord Vishnu. So now, I'm jumping here a little bit. In text 4 of the Gita, of chapter 3, it says, Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Right? So Krishna here is saying that when we are conditioned, then we cannot also renounce all of a sudden, because simply by abstaining from work or renunciation alone, we won't be able to make it. Purport Prabhupada explains the renounced order of life can be accepted when one has been purified by the discharge of the prescribed form of duties, which are laid down just to purify the hearts of materialistic men. Without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life sannyas. Once again here, without purification, one cannot attain success by abruptly adopting the fourth order of life sannyas. Sometimes renunciation done prematurely can be a farce, unless our senses are purified. And this is why my Bhakti Shastri teacher, one of the first things that they mentioned, one of the things they mentioned in chapter 3 that I still remember, they mentioned how renunciation is not the means of purification. Renunciation is a result of purification. Of course, some renunciation is needed for purification. But true renunciation, renunciation without having to feel drawn to it, to actually renounce it because of no attraction, is a result of purification, not the means of purification.
Prabhuji,
And
can you repeat that statement again about
yes,
you said what your
yes,
Bhakti.
yes, Prabhu. That renunciation is not the means of purification. Sorry, renunciation is not the means of purification, but it is the result of purification. Renunciation is the result of purification, not the means of purification. Right? So, because it is easy for us to give up our prescribed duties uh, and um, and become renounced, but it is harder to be renounced such that we can perform our prescribed duties. And that's why prescribed duties are important to actually purify the heart. Just like when devotees were very young, then Prabhupada would tell them that don't get married, don't associate with girls, practice brahmacharya, right? So very nice. That was practice of renunciation. And the devotees, they would, many of whom came from various backgrounds where they were all used to having girlfriends and all these things, they would control their senses because, okay, I'm in brahmachari life, I should, purify my heart. And that was their renunciation. And then once they were mature, they had reached the correct age, then they would get married. And then once they would get married, after 3 or 4 years, they would come to Prabhupada and say, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. This process is so nice. Krishna consciousness is so wonderful. I want to do it day and night. I just want to chant all day and night. I want to read day and night. I want to serve you, Prabhupada, day and night. So, Prabhupada, I'm not going home. I want to take sannyas. And 9 times out of 10, there are some exceptions, but Prabhupada will say, no, you stay in family life. No taking sannyas. This sannyas is actually escapism, because after 4 or 5 years, they're having difficulty in their married life. And then it became an austerity to live with the wife, right? Before it was the austerity to stay away from women. Now it was an austerity to live with them. It's the same thing. It's the same attachment, but the other side of the coin. So Prabhupada say, no, you stay with their wife. That is your purification. But you stay while following all the regulated principles and fully dedicating your lives to serving Krishna. That is true sannyas. So prescribed duties cannot be given up in the mood of escapism, but they need to be given up in the mood of true renunciation. There's one man I remember. In India, he met my spiritual master. His name is Gopal Krishna Maharaj. He was a devotee. One very nice devotee was his disciple, and his mother was very sick, and she was sick for many long time, since many years, and she was ill in a way that she could not move about. She was pretty much lying in her bed, and she would pass stool and urine in her bed. And this devotee was not from a very wealthy background. He had, a decent job, but he wasn't very rich. So he did not have the funds to hire someone or all these things. So he was taking care of her, and he would engage in those menial services. And so he came one day to my Guru Maharaj and he said, I'm just thinking that this is all material life, and I just feel like I should serve Krishna, and I should go out and preach and distribute books and do artik in the temple and do kirtan. And this is just Maya. This is I'm just engaged in my family services all the time. So Guru Maharaj, I just want your permission to give this up. And what should I do? Because at the same time she's there, what should I do? And I was surprised by his response. When my Guru Maharaj responded to and said that this is your service to Krishna. If you leave this service and you do some other service, it may not be service to Krishna. But right now, what you are doing, this is your offering of service to Krishna. You should not give that up. You cannot give that up. So he was the spiritual master, and he was telling us same point here that Prabhupada is saying, that giving up the prescribed duties, Krishna's given this to you to purify your heart. Krishna's given this to you to help you advance in spiritual life, so that one day we are ready to take this final stage of renunciation, where we can just serve Krishna day and night. But we may not be at that stage. And abruptly, if we give up everything, we become a sannyasi, then we may fall down. At the same time, we must perform the regulated practices of bhakti yoga. At the same time, prescribed duties means that we do our prescribed spiritual duties. It doesn't mean escapism, nor does it mean false renunciation. Both are forms of attachment. Attachment is attachment, but aversion to something is also an attachment. But wanting to no aversion or attachment, that is true detachment. Like Arjuna is averse to fighting, and that is a form of attachment. Right? He's attached not to fight. We're attached not to do something. That is an attachment. One who restrains the senses of action. So this is the conclusion. Why Krishna is saying this? One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So we may externally restrain ourselves, but unless the senses are purified, our mind and senses will dwell on those things. And then we will be a pretender. So if we are serving Krishna, but our mind and senses are still dwelling on sense objects, it's still not a purification. It's still, our mind is still not purified. So that's why we need to purify through the regulated practice of Bhakti Yoga. And Prabhupada has a wonderful purport in this regard, that only those who are fully Krishna conscious can give up their prescribed duties. So that time and stage comes when we are fully Krishna conscious and we can give up our material duties. That is our spiritual duties, which are connected with our material duties. But not until we are fully Krishna conscious. And Devikanandan Prabhu recently came and he was giving such a nice class. He said, we have to ask, am I really Krishna conscious? Am I really completely purified that I can say that I have no duty? And because we cannot, therefore, even Lord Chaitanya, he gave the example, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to Gaya and performed pinda for his father. For a liberated soul, what is the need? For his mother, for his father, he did that, right? When Jagannath Mishra left. What is the need? He was a sannyasi. He is a pure devotee dancing and falling in ecstasy, in love for Krishna on the ground, far above any stage that we have. Yet still he performed his prescribed duties because he was setting an example. That even he was a sannyasi, but he felt, I'm not fully Krishna conscious. So I cannot say that I have no duties not to perform. Translation, but for one who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. So Prabhupada says in this regard, and I think this concludes it well, because then we'll end here, that that the process of Krishna consciousness is not for us to enjoy Krishna. Especially like when people go to the Dham, to Vrindavan, then they are, it's very easy for us to come in the mood that I am enjoying Krishna, enjoying Krishna's, spiritual bliss. But rather, the purpose is for Krishna to enjoy us. And that's why Prahlad Maharaj says that I am willing, Krishna, if this is what pleases you, to go to hell and be there for you, if that's what pleases you. Our purpose is that Krishna must enjoy us, not that we are wanting to enjoy Krishna. And the highest prayer, therefore, is not to go back to the spiritual world and enjoy with Krishna, but to be wherever Krishna wants us to be, to serve in whatever way Krishna wants us to serve, to perform any activity that Krishna wants us to do. And that is a gradual process, difficult to attain, and that is being fully Krishna conscious. So we'll stop here because we are already quite late. Next time, well, okay, since it's marathon time, I feel a little obliged to do this because this is the marathon, so we all need to get inspired. Prabhupada in the purport, in the lecture that he gave on this verse, he therefore encourages us that we should go out and serve him in this way. This point that I was mentioning about enjoying Krishna versus being enjoyed by Krishna. He says in Vrindavan, you'll find so-called devotees of Krishna living in seclusion and supposedly chanting Hare Krishna. In practice, it has been seen that such an artificial way of trying to become Krishna conscious does not make anyone advanced. They live in a secluded place and chant Hare Krishna, but when they come out, they are smoking. They cannot even give up tobacco, let alone the other enticements of the material world. When you become mature, then you may wish to try living in seclusion. So he's telling us that our process is not living in seclusion. our process is active service to Krishna. Why? Again, because renunciation is a result of purification, not the means of purification. And therefore, he encouraged us to perform active devotional services, like distributing his books. So actually, there's only 1 or 2 slides left. Let me finish it very quickly. Text 18, also very key. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work. So this is no purpose to fulfill, but also no reason not to perform such work. If we are so advanced, then why we cannot perform our prescribed duties? Nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. A self-realized man is no longer obliged to perform any prescribed duty, save and except activities in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not inactivity either, as will be explained in the following verses. A Krishna conscious man does not take shelter of any person, man or demigod. Whatever he does in Krishna consciousness is sufficient in the discharge of his obligation. So in the material world, we are so dependent. We have to take shelter. We feel I have to, I'm dependent on my boss. I'm dependent on, this person, that person. But a devotee simply depends upon Krishna. Simply takes shelter of Krishna so that he can perform his service to Krishna very nicely. And he performs his prescribed duties also very nicely, depending simply upon Krishna. Not being overly dependent on anyone or anything material. Kings such as Janak attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Krishna is saying, if you're not self-realized, we need to perform our prescribed duty. And even if we are self-realized, to set an example for others, we should perform our devotional service, our work. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So you are a great man, you are a leader. Especially, you must set an example for everyone to follow. As the ignorant perform their duties, without attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. So what changes is the consciousness. One is with attachment, the other is without attachment. But the consciousness is what has changed. The activity may remain the same. So once again, wrapping everything up, some things we were not able to discuss fully, but we touched upon. So we must cultivate transcendental knowledge about Krishna. This is a more detailed breakdown than what I had presented earlier. It's from text 1 through 10. As we were discussing just recently, that it becomes knowledge about Krishna is our guiding light. What activity do we engage in? Who do we engage in and for? This is all transcendental knowledge. Part of that transcendental knowledge is realizing that Krishna is a goal of all paths of the Varnashram system. So we talked about that how Karma Kanda leads to Karma Yoga. Varna Ashram is oftentimes connected with Karma Kanda, and the purpose of that is Karma Yoga. Then in text 16 to 24, Krishna talks about Karma Yoga. Then after discussing, offering all of our activities to Krishna, he talks about sacrifices and how this activity again leads to transcendental knowledge. So once we have knowledge, it turns into action. And then action then turns into knowledge. But which knowledge is this? This is realization. That action then turns into realizing Krishna, realize knowledge. And then finally, Krishna gives this summary of transcendental knowledge. And those were the final verses in which he, like he does in every chapter, it's very interesting. He tells us the ultimate goal, the process of bhakti, how everything leads to devotional service to Krishna. Thank you very much. We'll stop here. Next chapter will be chapter 4. So we completed a full chapter today. Thank you. So we'll just spend a few minutes for questions. We went over time, so we'll keep it short. Yes, thank you. Vijay Nrsimha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for this class. I had two questions. One's very straightforward and short. That is, we talked about reincarnation and 8.4 billion species. When we go through those species, do we have to go through each 8.4 billion, or can it jump from tree to cow and then human?
Nice question. So it's from wherever we fall to. So let's say someone becomes a tree, the result of exposing ourselves naked is becoming a tree, Bhagavatam describes. Then tree is pretty low in the evolutionary cycle. So then we have to work our way from a tree all the way to a human being. So it'll be many, 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 many lifetimes. But if we fall to the platform of a dog, let's say someone's very attached to a dog, then it's maybe a little more fortunate because dogs are mammals and then not so many lifetimes back to the human species.
Okay.
The different, wherever we go to under normal circumstances, from there we will work our way up back to the spiritual platform.
Okay. So second question was, I have a little confusion. Is it correct to understand that initially in the beginning we were all with Krishna serving him, but then formed our own desire for self sense gratification, and that's why we were sent here. Is that correct understanding?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the correct understanding. Actually, Prabhupada described that our first life is as Brahma. After we leave the spiritual world, the first birth that anyone takes is the birth as Lord Brahma.
Okay.
Because in the
So then my
spiritual world, we wanted
confusion
to
then is,
control.
so then
Yes.
my confusion then is that if we were in Vaikuntha and serving Krishna, once we're in Vaikuntha, that's the only place we don't fall down from. So how did we fall down then?
Yes, that is always the perennial question. So Krishna says that once we go back there, we never fall again. But the first time round, we can fall. Why? Because when we're in the spiritual world, Krishna is the only controller. In the spiritual context, Krishna, like in the spiritual consciousness, not just the spiritual world, but spiritual activities, Krishna is the only controller. And so when we are in the spiritual world and we see Krishna being the only enjoyer and controller, and we are simply servants, then the desire comes to our mind that maybe I could be a controller. And then we come as Brahman. Krishna gives us a full experience. This is how it is to be controller. But we feel dissatisfied, then we come again, again, again. So why do we get that desire of being a controller? That's the thing that Acharya said, yadrichaya, somehow or the other, because it's our free will. We have the free will. Therefore, we have the freedom to exercise the free will. Though we are fully satisfied, though we are absorbed in Krishna's loving devotional service, but because we haven't had the experience, somehow or the other we get the experience, the desire to become the controller. We become envious of Krishna. That why he is there, I should be there, in the center of all the gopis. Then we come to the material world. And then after we are fully frustrated, and this is why the material world is so perfect, we're frustrated in trying to be the controller, we cannot. Then we go back to the spiritual world, and then we don't make that mistake again because we've already experienced it. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. So that is the one inexplicable desire, but it's due to our free will. So yes. Thank you. See, it's 8:32. I think we should end now because I like to end on time. When it goes late, then it becomes late for all of us. So let's save those questions for next week. And Deshprabhu Lavanya Mataji will start with your questions next time, or you can message me and we can ask and discuss them.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Krishna,
Hare
thank you so
Krishna.
much.
Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you. Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.